Three, two, one.
You ready?
You're listening to the Real Pineapple Podcast Network. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. We are the Real Pineapple. This is Hunter here. I'm here with Colin. Colin, how are you doing, sir?
I'm good. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, and I'm here with Scott. Scott, how you doing, kind sir?
I'm doing great. Good to be with the people of the podcast world.
Oh, well, we missed you, buddy.
Shout out to the fans.
Yeah.
Hey,
thanks for listening.
Yeah, we appreciate it. And speaking of appreciate, we're talking about a movie that I might have liked called Blade Runner 2049. It's starring Harrison Ford.
Spoiler alert. Jeez, have you ever heard of a tease?
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you. I can't tease for this movie. This movie's just... You know what this movie was like? This movie was like getting warm chocolate chip cookies, like getting woken up with like a breakfast in bed, just like your favorite meal. I was like, oh man, this movie just cuddled me, it gave me great food, and then it just patted me on the head and tucked me in. I'm like, oh, thank you, movie.
Oh my god, that was the most glorious review I've ever heard of anything.
This movie is wonderful in so many goddamn ways. It kind of
I'm
hurts my head.
so happy to hear you say that.
Like, no.
I
like,
didn't want to argue with you on this.
I left this theater just, like, on cloud nine. Like, I was, like, listening to, like, Temptations on the way home. I was so happy. This movie is just... It's so good. It's so goddamn good. And thank God it was good. Let me just get this out of the way here before I throw it to you, Colin. I had that Alien Covenant feeling. I was terrified. I'm like, oh, please don't fuck this up. Like, please, for the love of God, don't make me sad. And not only does this make me hate Alien Covenant more, it made me like the original Blade Runner more. Because it connects to this. And it's just... It's so good. I'm so happy this was good. Thank God.
Yeah.
Colin, go ahead.
Man, like, what a task to make a follow-up movie to Blade Runner. I mean, it's crazy. Like, all of the debate that Blade Runner's, like, started throughout the, like, time that it's had its different remakes and the lore that it's created in this world of, you know, dystopian Los Angeles with extra worlds out there. Just from like a short, less than 2 hour runtime of this first movie, Blade Runner, like created such a universe that people just, you know, connected with or you know, were protective over. And just the idea to make a sequel to that movie is so daunting and so, like, risky to either ruin the franchise or just piss off a fan base that's going to come at you, like, very strongly that you didn't do a good job. And, yeah, man, they got quite a team to do this. So they got the original writer, which is awesome, Hampton Fancher. And then they got a director who's just been, like, slinging out, like, really, really good movies in Denis Villeneuve. And he's most recently done the Arrival. It was called Arrival, Sicario, and then he did Prisoners in 2013. All movies that I've loved. He's been using the same cinematographer for all of them, and man, this is like maybe the best cinematography I've ever seen. This is like absolutely gorgeous. It's like you could just put this movie on silently in like a room of your house, and it would just be a work of art playing on loop. It's just gorgeous. So we can kind of get into our how we've known Blade Runner in the past and what our impressions were when we heard that it was coming out and everything. I'm curious how you were going into the theater. What were you thinking about this movie, Scott? With you'd seen the first one, I'm assuming, right?
So no, I hadn't, apparently, because when I started, I looked up Blade Runner to watch it again, I was thinking of something completely different. I was like, oh, apparently I've never seen this before.
Oh, that's exciting. So what?
and-
Yeah. So what did you? What did
Yeah,
you think?
so I didn't really like it. I didn't.
Well, it makes
It was like super like
God,
dated.
God
and,
fucking
like-
damn it! Are you kidding? Sorry, go ahead.
Like, it was just. I think it was just like nothing really happened. Like, I was just kind of bored. Like bored through the majority of this thing of it. But we'll get into that later. I don't need to repeat that movie right now. So I was like disappointed. I think because I went into that thinking that was because everybody talks so highly of it.
I would give you the Stone Cold Stunner of your life right now if you were in the same room as me.
You're fine. So yeah, going into this one, I'm like, well, it's got to be better. Because I mean, like, you've got Harrison Ford, Ryan Gosling, Anna de Armas is in this, and then the director as well. I love all those movies that you mentioned, Colin. With Prisoner, Sicario was one of my favorites of 2015.
You love Sicario.
Arrival was excellent, and yeah, so he kills it in movies. So going into this thing, I was just like, I was getting ready for. I didn't quite remember the trailer. I remember us doing a trailer review, but I wasn't quite there on it. And then I remember that Gosling is in this. So I was like, oh yeah, I get to watch this sexy mug for the next nearly 3 hours. So yeah, it was super pretty. But I just got to like the last 2 hours. I was like, this is going on pretty far. Like, this is a long movie.
What was the movie you
yeah.
thought you thought Blade Runner was?
I thought I saw Blade.
Are you kidding me?
So I thought I was
Really?
going in to think I was gonna see like Wesley Snipes, and I was like, "Wait, Harrison Ford is in this?"
God
Yeah,
damn.
it threw me for a loop.
Are you talking?
Threw me for a real
Are
loop.
you talking about the original? Or are you talking about the new one
Mm-hmm.
you just saw? I'm confused.
You'd be going into. So I saw the original Blade Runner first.
Okay.
And then I saw the new one today.
Okay.
So I wanted to see them one and then the next one.
I gotcha.
But yeah, so I was actually able to piece together some stuff. I was like, hey, I usually can never do this because I can't remember what the previous movie was about.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
nailed
Nice.
it. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I mean, it was a hell of a cast, I would say. Like, they really put together something special, I think, with these people, especially with Jared Leto. I mean, we can debate about the Joker, I'm sure, but I like probably 80 to 90% of the stuff that he's done. So, like, he killed it in this movie along with Ryan Gosling, who kills it in the majority of the shit that he's in.
The lame.
Hunter, what do you think? Hunter, what do you think?
Oh, I just. So, this is what I'll say about it. I was really sitting there, and the problem is about this movie is that we're reviewing it, but we have to dance around so much of this because so much of the plot kicks in the last 2/3. So I mean, mild spoilers, but we're gonna try really hard to not spoil as little as possible because I think that I get what you're saying, Scott, because it is a long movie. Like, I didn't feel the length personally, but it is a long movie. It's 2 hours, 43 minutes. I mean, it's almost 3 hours. But I think if you stick with that first hour, the movie definitely rewards you at the end for sticking with it. Including a final fight scene that actually reminded me of The Revenant, when I was just standing up in my seat, like yes, like, oh, so intense. I fucking love that last fight scene. But basically, the shorthand version of this is the Tyrell Corporation, 30 years after the original Blade Runner went under, and then they were bought and then rebranded by this character named Neander Wallace, who's Jared Leto's character, who creeped me the fuck out, by the way. You're right, Scott. I mean, we can debate the Joker, but Jared Leto, I thought he was really great in this. And so they basically go ahead and create they do genetically modified food, and then they go they've upgraded like the replicants on Earth, which is called Nexus 9 now. So basically, they're like hunting down these old Nexus replicants, and it's and they're being hunted by a new generation of Blade Runners. Among one of them, of course, being Kay, who's Ryan Gosling. So that's really all you need to kind of know, and then the plot unfolds from there. Colin, you're right on the money, man. This is one of the prettiest movies I've ever seen in my life. I couldn't believe how beautiful this movie looked. The budget was 185 million on this, and it shows. Like, it is a pretty ass movie. What did you kind of think, Scott, of the like the effects?
The effects were great, and that's what, like, I think the original one pulled me out of it, was like of how like unrealistic everything is. Like, I feel like in the 80s a lot of the futuristic kind of movies were just like not realistic at all. I'm not saying because they didn't have the technology, I'm just saying because like I don't know, it's kind of like Star Wars when it came out. Like, a lot of the stuff that like was, they don't really even try to explain it, basically. I feel like these days when you explain the future, I've noticed is that like they really try to get like scientific with it instead of just being like, well, this is just, it just kind of works, and that's how it is. But yeah, in this one, I feel like it was, what I really liked about it was how pretty it was, for sure, and just like how they used the color and like elements too. A lot of the characters are like replicants, so you're constantly, I don't know, it's kind of like Westworld, where,
which I haven't seen yet.
Like,
no spoilers. I'm sorry.
but it's similar to where there's robots that are very, very similar to humans, and even have feelings like this, where you're put into that existential dilemma of what is life and what is like consciousness, basically. And I feel like they really were able to showcase that with like the elements. There's a part where let's see, Ryan Gosling's character's essentially girlfriend is a hologram, is a program, and he takes her outside where she's finally able to experience like the elements, and I thought that was a cool scene. Kind of showed this like link between the virtual and reality and things like that. So the whole movie was very much like that. It was very pretty. They played on like the bright lights of the city in the, and a lot of cool transitions between like the embers of a fire into the lights of a city and things like that. So visually, I think it was really, really beautiful.
Yeah, Colin, your thoughts on the visuals?
Yeah, like I was saying, it's one of the highlights of the movie. The cinematographer has got to get some kind of award for this. This is all the shots, all the lighting. Like, the lighting is like the most expertly like done lighting for all the sets and everything. It's changing colors. Like I said, everything's kind of a work of art. As far as just kind of getting into other things I liked about it, just getting away from the visuals as well. Scott, you touched on the cast. The cast is so good.
Yep.
I didn't really get to comment on that. Gosling is like, I feel like anytime he's coming out with anything now, like, I'm just so excited. From The Big Short to Nice Guys, I even like was a huge fan of his performance in La La Land, which, I mean, he got recognition for. But I mean, I tend to like his other stuff better. Even with something like The Place Beyond the Pines was incredible.
Yes, it was.
So intense. So I mean, everything that he's in is like must-see film for me to begin with. So like the fact that he's just at the center of this movie that I would have been so interested to see regardless of who they casted, probably more critical if it wasn't him. I mean, they really got kind of a guy that like no matter what, I was going to be like, that's a great decision to get him. Like, being able to watch him for the course of the entire movie is just like, no dude carries a movie better, in my opinion, right now, other than maybe Leo. Like, he's just commands the scene with like such little dialogue. He plays this character of like an obedient replicant so well, and then all of a sudden you start to see like the cracks forming as he's kind of discovering more about his history and himself, or what he perceives to be his history, and just like the way emotions start like forming for him that's not like new to him being a replicant. I mean, he does a masterful job. The director does a masterful job of directing him in that transformation. I mean,
wow, God, get Gosling's dick out of your mouth.
No, I know. I seriously, like, there's few other guys that I could give that high of a regard as far as to an acting performance in a movie. But like, I seriously was like, I loved him in this movie and his portrayal. The other like standouts is Ana de Armas playing Joy.
Yes,
that Scott was talking about, the virtual girl that he's kind of like has in his life. And then also, like, basically the main villain, the henchman, if you will, replicant of Mr. Wallace, which is Love, played by Sylvia Hoeks, who also does, like,
total
such...
cunt. Sorry.
Yeah, she does such a good job of, like, being this super evil replicant. What did you think of her and some of the other cast, Hunter?
So there's a point where I'll just say that Love ends up smashing something, and I just lost my shit. I'm like, you fucking cunt. Like, I said cunt out loud. A couple people looked at me like, that's cool, good job. I guess she makes you hate her, and just the more the movie goes on, the more you just see her become just more and more evil. And so when it leads to the climax, it's even more just intense for where the movie ends up. But she played that role brilliantly. Honestly, she's one of the more terrifying. It was very ex machina in the female villain portrayal for her. It put me right there with Alicia Vikander. From Ex Machina.
And a little bit of her too. I felt like especially when they had like the surrogate part, reminded me of her.
Yeah, it's very creepy though. Like whenever she's on screen, you feel really uneasy. There are a couple times I was kind of grabbing like the arm of the chair. It's like, oh god, like she's gonna fucking snap. But oh, it's so good. Scott, what did you think of the other characters?
I feel like Dave Bautista is becoming somebody who I first was not a huge fan of, and now I'm like, this guy has legitimate chops. Like, he was in a pretty small role in this movie, but he's there early on, and like, I think he just nails the role. Robin Wright, who is always scary as hell. I love her in House of Cards. She kills it as this like power hungry wife of Frank Underwood. But yeah, I mean, everybody really played their roles well, and I usually in his later years Harrison Ford has really declined, I feel like, especially like just acting wise, and like it's the truth. I feel like, I mean, it all started for Indiana Jones for me, but I feel like ever since then I've been less than impressed with his acting performances. But I feel like he really played this well, and him and Ryan Gosling, I feel like really played off each other well. And like I said, yeah. Collins kind of mentioned Ryan Gosling being able to kind of carry a movie, and he totally does in this one. And he's in it a lot. Like, he is the sole focus. They basically just follow him around the entire time. So yeah, the cast list was great. But for me, the things that I disliked about the first one kind of feel like carried over, as far as like a lot of like space in between scenes. I feel like it wasn't just necessarily the length of the entire movie, but from one scene to the next, didn't feel like they didn't throw in enough action in between, was what I really didn't like about the first one. It just felt like nothing exciting really happened. And not to say that what that movie was supposed to be, but I just felt like that's what maybe it was missing. And then towards the end, I don't know, slightly predictable towards the end. And then I feel like they probably could have cut it off by, I don't know, half an hour or so. But yeah, that'd probably be my biggest gripe with it. I just wasn't super involved as much as I wanted to. But I mean, I liked it a lot better than the first one, which I know I can get butchered for. But
You're goddamn right. You. Ugh.
I just don't think. I think. Have you guys seen it recently?
Yeah, I watched it like 2 days ago. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Hunter, have you seen it
Same.
recently?
Yeah, I
Okay.
actually just bought it.
Yeah. It's just it's not for me. It's not
That's so.
not my cup of tea, as they say.
So, honestly, like coming into this review, I don't think I could have ever guessed that you were gonna be like the first Blade Runner is dumb. It's like so shocking to me that that's what we're talking about in this review. But that's neither here nor there at this point. I do really enjoy the first one. I couldn't disagree with you more about how it needs more action. I like the fact that this movie is different in that sense, that it feels kind of like this kind of old romantic, like detective film noir style movie where it's a mystery, one clue leading to the next, and just watching the mystery unfold. Like, I really like the way that these movies kind of go about that. It really feels just kind of like you're reading this great detective novel, but it's set in this like amazing scientific future where you know the questions of what does and what makes a human, or do you exist if you're a replicant type of, do you have a soul, do you have consciousness, all these other things coming into it. But I totally like hear your gripe on how that does make the movie drag and slow if you're not feeling the mystery that's unfolding. Like I can totally see how that can become a drag. But as far as what they did in this new movie that continues the story of 30 years before, I thought they did a great job with, like, this script. I thought was awesome, and
Yep.
it doesn't blatantly, like, one of the big debates of the first Blade Runner was Deckard, Harrison Ford's character, was he actually a replicant the whole time? And there's evidence both ways. In fact, it's funny because Ridley Scott, he is adamant that Deckard is a replicant, and then Harrison Ford's like, no way, Deckard's a human. I played him as a human. He's a human. Like, he's like, so there's like the director and the main actor who played him are like adamantly like disagreeing on what the like actual story, how that went. And I liked that this movie didn't answer that. Which may be a spoiler. You may be going into this thinking that you're going to get a definitive answer, but you really don't. It's still kind of left up to debate, which just kind of like, satisfies that part of it as well. What did you think about how they handled all that, Hunter?
Colin, God, I just want to kiss you right now because you're saying everything that I want to say. Like, that is exactly one of the big things I love, is that they give you enough evidence both ways. So you could make the case that he's a replicant, or you could make the case that he's human. And it's so goddamn wonderful that they don't tell you either way what they are, what he is. I fucking love that they kept it that vague. I will say, to kind of agree with Scott a little bit, the movie is long. Like, I didn't feel the length, but when I got out, I went, I could see how people would kind of go, I don't want to sit through an almost 3 hour long movie.
It was definitely, like, I can't even, like, defend it being that long, because it didn't have to be. So, like, I felt the length a little bit, too. Like halfway through the movie, I was like, oh, okay, we're halfway through. It's a long movie type of thing.
So I mean, I'll give Scott that much, as much as it pains me to. But honestly, just kind of getting to my final thoughts here. When it comes down to it, I have to think: does the movie being a little long take away enough of my enjoyment of it? And the answer is no. I love really everything about this film. It's just it works so well just across the board. And everything that I wanted from this movie, I got. So, yeah, I adore it. I really do. And the thing is too, there were so many chances. There are so many ways that this movie could have just imploded and been really, really, the kind of paraphrase calling really, 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 really dumb. It really could have gone south multiple times, and yet it didn't. It stayed the course. It didn't. It expanded on the story, just enough, but still, and also left it open to, if they wanted to do a sequel, they could, but it's not necessary. It definitely ends in a spot where you go, okay, not sequel's not needed. So, I enjoyed the hell out of this. So I gotta give this a. I haven't given one of these in a while. I've been kind of jonesing. Like, I've been waiting for for something else to come out that just made me go, this is why I love movies so much. And honestly, this made me remember why I love doing this so much with you guys. Why I love film so much. This movie.
Well, this reminded me why I hated doing this with you, Hunter. I kid. That was a joke. I was being
you know what? That's okay. Because you know what happens when you have like people like Scott who think this is just okay. We get Transformers movies and dumb sci-fi, or dumb movies that are called sci-fi. So you keep fighting your terrible fight. I'll be on the right side of history. Thank you very much. This movie is wonderful. It's in pretty much every fucking way. It's right there with the original for me, so I'm doing it. I'm giving it a fan fucking test. Love this movie. Love it. Scott, go ahead. What are you gonna get?
You want to sandwich this bad one in with a couple of good ones? Yeah, I just was super disappointed in the first, because I think I was expecting a lot. I wasn't really. Might have been expectations going into it, but it was just boring to me. And then I feel like this one, they didn't ramp it up enough for me to be like, yeah, now it's like exciting. I just feel like the first 3/4 of this thing were really slow, and I'm listening to you talk about it, Colin, about it being like a little bit more noir and like slow moving and like purposeful, and I usually like that kind of movie. But it just wasn't like, I just wasn't able to get drawn in, and there are certain points where I did, like with Kay's interactions with Joy, and then also with like Robin Wright was pretty intense in this thing. Yeah, I just was not able to buy in at any point until the end, I guess, when there's a little bit of a manhunt, but. The cast was top notch. I feel like everybody played their role, and I don't know why Dave Bautista really stood out to me, but
yeah,
like I think he is becoming a bit of like a. I mean, he definitely plays his roles in his particular characters, but because he's like a monster in real life. So and the director was great. It looked great. Even I like the soundtrack personally. I feel like it kind of helped tie everything together. And then, having just watched the first one, the tie-ins that they have, they don't just give them to you. I mean, there are a few, but you kind of have to pull from your memory about what you actually saw and how these are really tying together, and trying to figure out what is Ryan Gosling really Kay's role in all of this, in this whole scenario. But it was too long for me, and I just thought overall it just really weighed it down. The scene to scene was not, it was kind of loose. So I thought I would say I would give it a B-.
I think it's the way you describe it is like totally fair. Like, I can't even like. I'm not gonna make my review like debating your review because.
Oh, please do.
No. Because I don't want to do that because it's just everything you're saying is totally fair. I totally hear you. What I wanted to say right after like I got out of the theater and like have been thinking about, and I'm just like my mind's still kind of like centered on how I originally felt about it, which is I love the movie like twofold. Like one, if you're just watching the movie as like a story of this replicant K played by Ryan Gosling, and none of the lore or anything from if Blade Runner the first one never happens, like that's still a great mystery and a great like story that plays out. Like I was so enthralled in just like finding out like what's the story with Ryan Gosling, like just watching him. It's not a spoiler to say he's a replicant. It's basically like laid out for you like right away. But like how he lives his life, taking a look, into like his apartment as he's, going through daily life after a hard day of blade running, searching down Dave Bautista and retiring him, and then making it home. What does this guy do in his spare time? And it gives you like that look. That's like was very interesting to me. Like I was like, time passed very quickly for me. I felt like in those scenes where he's interacting with Joy, or just everything about the universe that Blade Runner has created, and that's the second reason why this movie is so great, is that it's just added to this rich like lore and history and universe that the original Blade Runner created. Now we have stories of like in 2022 there was this massive blackout that wiped away the history of all the replicants. So now you couldn't search them in a database to figure out who's who. It really blurred the lines of who's human, who's replicant. And then you get Mr. Wallace coming in and taking over farming, saving people from famine, creating his new replicants that are like so loyal that they'll kill themselves like in service to you. This universe that was created, and then you just get down to like Ryan Gosling's character of Kay and how he fits into this universe. Like all of that was so interesting to me. And then on top of that, the direction, the acting, everything is so good. On top of that, everything's coated and wrapped up in a nice little bow. I mean, I couldn't have been happier with this movie, like going into already being a big fan of the first movie. So I have to give it a fan-fucking-tastic. That's just how I felt leaving the movie, and I still feel that way.
Colin, let's get into bed together and snuggle in the warmth that we both gave us a fan-fucking-tastic. We'll leave no good Scott out in the cold. You country bumpkin. Goddamn.
It's so shocking to me, but I hear you, Scott.
Yeah, I don't like it.
Yeah, and like I said, like that's usually the style of movie that I love. Especially like the pretty ones.
Yeah.
It's like, what? Not tonight, fellas.
Not tonight.
Not tonight.
That's all right.
That's all right. It's okay. There's room for one more, but
yeah, it's okay.
Water's just right. Get in this big old Blade Runner hot tub of love.
There you go. It's alright. It's alright. I honestly thought you were gonna go lower than B-, to be totally honest with you, so I'm kind of okay with it.
I think you were too, but I think you were being respectful because you know that we both loved it.
Yeah, well, but I mean, like, I also remember the trailer being, like, really good. And, like, being super excited.
We didn't mention Hans Zimmer either. You get, like, this crazy music the whole time, too. It's, like, super intense.
Yeah, the sound.
Hans Zimmer and the other dude that he worked with, like, the music was fucking on point, too.
Yeah. No.
Totally. No. Totes me goats. just not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
Sorry, bros.
It's chill.
Sorry, not sorry.
It's alright.
Whatever. But guys,
it's okay for us to disagree on 2% of it.
Yeah. I don't honestly, Scott, I thought you were gonna give this like a C by your review. I thought you were gonna go C. So I was like, B-.
Well, I still want to be a part of the podcast. So
you want to, you got to keep getting invited back.
Part of that was like, I'm like, what's a half a grade? Like,
Well, it's actually more on the Marvel movies. If you give a Marvel movie lower than a B, then Hunter will like not invite you back
that's
ever.
fair. That's true.
He's
I won't get invited to his birthday party.
Yeah,
yeah. Wait for Infinity
even though that
War.
memory
yeah,
was implanted, you replicant.
Yeah, if Black
Does not compete.
if Black Panther is less than A minus from either of you, I'm not inviting you.
Oh, that movie looks horrible.
You fucking son of a.
See, now the claws come out. Not for Blade Runner, but for Black Panther. Don't fuck around.
Anyways, guys, what did you think of Blade Runner 2049? Do you think it's right there with the sequel? It's high on Rotten Tomatoes. I think it's got 85% last I checked. So it's pretty high up there. But let us know what you thought in the comments below. You can follow us on Facebook at The Real Pineapple. You can follow us here on SoundCloud along with Podbean, iTunes, and Google Play at The Real Pineapple. Follow yours truly on the Twitter at JHunterRealPineapple. You can follow Scott on Twitter at
Name the
You can
first.
follow Colin on Twitter at.
The Real O'Neill.
And guys, go ahead and show some love to our sponsor, Fangirl Cuddles, making the best fucking awesome nerd and sports custom blankets. If you use the pineapple, Jesus Christ, if you use the code,
Point and click with the pineapple.
yeah, exactly. If you go and use the code RealPineapple, all caps, on Etsy.com/fangirlcuddles or Facebook.com/fangirlcuddles, you'll get $5 off your order. How fucking badass is that? And that's until the 20th.
Fucking
you're
badass,
welcome.
bro.
Yeah. Well said. But go ahead and show them some love. Guys, this weekend I'll have a review up for the Runaways trailer as New York Comic Con is started today. Actually, I'll have a review up with Scott for Inhumans and why it's the worst thing Marvel has done. And we will have a review up for the My Little Pony movie, which I know Scott's ready for. Are you?
Which is going to be the best thing that Marvel's ever done.
God,
Am I right?
God damn it. Guys, thank you so much for listening. We'll talk to you soon.